Jimmy, do you need your internet to be secure? Do you have personal information on your phone or your laptop?
Yes.
So when you're out and about, you need a secure network to work on, don't you?
Yes.
So you need ExpressVPN.
This is how every podcast gonna start now.
I'm now starting with fake sponsors until we actually get one.
Please
That's
sponsor
the
us. We
plan.
need we need money.
We need sponsors,
Sponsor us
please.
with our 5 viewers, please. Most of us that are probably us.
I have a crippling Pokemon card addiction that I need fueling. Please
He
give me
does.
money.
Okay, it's getting pretty bad. He wants to buy football shirts as well. He can't afford it.
That is true.
His
Yeah,
girlfriend's going to beat
retro
him if he
football tops.
spends money. We don't know what to do. He needs help. Please sponsor us.
Please,
Sponsor a
anyone
child
sponsor.
today. It costs £1 a month. And again, something completely unrelated. We're all three of us are back. Me, Shaun, and Adam. We are
Awkward if you release this one first.
No, I'm releasing
Sorry.
the Champions League one.
So you say that we're back.
The Champions League one will be released on the 2nd of October, and this one will be released a few days after. The Batman was recently received a trailer. I don't know how everyone felt about that, but we'll get to that in a second. So this short podcast will be on our favourite superhero movies, or just opinions on certain superhero movies. But we'll probably start off first with, I assume we've all seen the Batman trailer, right?
When it came out, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how
That
much
was
you
obviously
remember.
a little while ago.
But
I remember it being very dark.
I'm very excited for it. I think Robert Pattinson's going to prove a lot of people wrong. I thought...
So get it right. Battinson. It's Battinson.
Okay, Battinson.
We had Batfleck. It's now Battinson.
Paul Dano... it's Dano or Dano? I don't know how to say it. I think it's Dano. Is going to be a good Riddler. I think they've got a chance of really starting something that's really been missed since the Nolan trilogy. Yeah, I don't know if Adam, do you have anything to say on that?
No, I don't know.
Fair enough.
No, that's all, I'm afraid.
Well, we'll move straight on to...
Well, also you can just mention that obviously it has been delayed, hasn't it? Because they had to stop filming because Pattinson himself got COVID, so they had to stop filming.
I don't know if there was actually... Did they have a release date?
They must have had some sort of preliminary one. Or like, it might not be a physical date, it might have been, when they do like Christmas, whatever year, it may have been a placing like that there was no set date.
I think it was next year, like end of next year, sorry.
But
I don't think they actually
because they haven't finished filming yet, it's not going to get released this year, is it?
Oh, October 1st, 2021, so literally a year from recording date.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, there you go. So yeah, we'll talk about our favorite superhero movies ever. Like, it doesn't have to be from Marvel or DC, just ever. Like mine, I'll start off with
Green Lantern.
Green Lantern. Ryan Reynolds puts on the performance of his life. Better than Deadpool.
Miles better than Deadpool.
To be fair, Green Lantern really wasn't that bad. It could have been way worse, and I hope when they do, because they're planning on doing an actual good Green Lantern movie this time. But I don't think it was terrible. I think the script needed a lot of work, but they had the premise right. The movie didn't look bad. Like, I think the effects weren't terrible. They could have done way better, but they weren't the worst. But no, Green Lantern is not my favourite. My favourite is The Dark Knight. It's probably my favourite movie ever, so it has to be on there. Heath Ledger's performance as the Joker was incredible, even though he wasn't exactly the Joker that everyone knows from comics or from previous films, like Jack Nicholson's Joker. But he was his own thing, and he really elevated the role. Considering he got slated like Ben Affleck and Robert Pattinson did, and suddenly everyone loved him because of his performance. He really shone the movie, and it was a shame that he passed. Christian Bale was an average Batman. He's not my favorite Batman, but I think he was a good Bruce Wayne, and he suited the role enough to make the movies enjoyable from his perspective. And it's just a fun movie. The whole trilogy is fun, but The Dark Knight specifically for me. Adam?
Well,
sorry.
I was just going to say while you're on that, obviously, I'm not going to disagree that it's not a good film. It's also actually one of my favourites, probably favourite as well.
Yeah.
But just to be a bit controversial and something to talk about, do you think that maybe people elevate it slightly higher? One, because of Heath Ledger dying.
Yeah.
That obviously it wasn't that long after that obviously they then look back on it and go, oh, it was amazing. And also on the fact that obviously a lot afterwards came out about how much he did it as like more method acting to actually become slightly insane. That people then put more weight onto how good the performance is. So if you were just to watch it and you didn't know about that, you'd be like, oh, it's a good performance. But because someone's then told you that afterwards, it elevates your opinion even more because you're like, oh, wow, he did this as well.
Well, when the movie came out for us, we were pretty young, so I didn't really listen to other people.
Okay, fair enough. And then also the same with Christian Bale, because obviously at the time, he went through a huge body transformation, didn't he, to play Batman, because he was just coming off The Machinist.
That was the one where he was super skinny.
Thin.
Yeah.
And then had to put all the weight on and make himself really muscly for Batman. Obviously, again, it's just one of the things that you learn afterwards, that how much work they did just for the role, that does it then just elevate that performance a bit more. Not so much the actual performance itself, but just you're like, oh well, they put in some work, so it must be good.
No, he was really good though, wasn't he? You can't sit there and say he wasn't good though.
So I'm not saying that he's shit and he is higher than he should be like rated. I'm just
agree.
saying, does that just make it? Does it just elevate people's opinions a bit higher than it normally would be if those details weren't found out afterwards?
I agree with the fact.
Yes.
Go on, you go.
I'd say yes, because people, it's just humanity. That's how it goes. You know, people get emotional when someone passes, like it did here. Like you look at what happened with Kobe Bryant when he passed away. Suddenly, everybody was saying, "Oh, he's a top 5 basketball player of all time." But before that, people weren't even putting him in his top 10. You know, people do tend to get.
There probably are people that were, but I get your point. Your point. His death,
they seem to
hit
elevate
people hard.
Yeah, and I feel like as well with the release of like the diary, where he basically was the Joker just all day, every day during the filming. I think maybe that did give it a bit more weight as well, which is why people look at it. I mean, it was still a great performance, don't get me wrong, but I feel like I'd agree with what Shaun said.
I agree in one.
I am also going to counter myself, but say that because you may say what I'm about to say.
Well, I agree in one aspect, which is people overrated him as the Joker. He was his own character. There's been nothing quite like what Heath Ledger did with the Joker than any other Joker medium. That the Joker in the comics isn't like that. The Joker in the animated shows isn't like that. In old movies isn't like that. He was an anarchist. He took the role and made it his own. So I think people elevate him high. Like when Jared Leto was the Joker, I don't think Jared Leto was that bad. He was in the movie for like 10 minutes. There was a lot of shit things in Suicide Squad, and Jared Leto really wasn't one of them for me. But like Jared Leto in Suicide Squad was closer to Joker in the comics than Heath Ledger was. And that's not to say Heath Ledger wasn't better. Heath Ledger had a way better performance, but he wasn't the Joker. He was his own character. He made that role. So if people say he's the best Joker ever, it's like he's not the best Joker ever, but he was the best person who played a character based off the Joker. You can argue that Joaquin Phoenix now might be the best Joker. The movie was great, but I would say that was more he wasn't the best Joker. He was like,
oh no, because he wasn't the Joker for half.
Yeah, like it was more of a he was the best that we've seen of the Joker's origin, which we haven't seen anything of. So he made like Heath Ledger made the Joker his own character. Joaquin Phoenix made the Joker his own character, and you might say Jared Leto was closer to the comics, so he didn't really make it his own character. But it wasn't necessarily bad. It's just people were like, "Oh, Heath Ledger was way better," so fuck Jared.
I mean, I feel like he was a little bit screwed from the start because it was the first time the Joker had been played since Heath Ledger had died.
Not counting TV, yeah.
Not counting TV, but like in the films, which is where a lot more people know the films than they do the TV shows.
Yeah,
I think it's more mainstream. He was the first person to play the Joker after Heath Ledger, so he was always going to get shat on from the start. Even if he did do a brilliant performance, he was always going to get compared to Heath Ledger.
Yeah.
I also think as well, how much is it that obviously you said that, Jimmy, that you didn't think Jared Leto was that bad, and that he did a good job of doing the comic book Joker.
Well, it was sort of like a mix of his own thing and comic book Joker, but he weren't really like. There's a lot of things wrong, like I said, with Suicide Squad.
Do you think there could have been a lot of hate on him purely because there is a whole generation of people that might not know the comic book Joker, and only know the Heath Ledger Joker?
100%,
that's why they didn't like
100%. It. Yeah, there are people, and it's fine not to read comics. None of you read comics. Yeah. I'm the only one that reads comics, but
so obviously there is going to be a big fan base that watch the films that haven't read the comics, that probably, especially if they grew up with the Dark Knight, of that being like their first Batman film with a Joker in it, or if they've seen the Joker in it, that they might take that as what the Joker is. So then because it's different, they don't agree to it.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's a generational thing. I know nerd culture's become more popular now, and it's less of a bad thing to call someone a nerd, but there's still not a lot of people reading comics compared to the people watching movies. So if you say, oh, this character's exactly like they are in the comics, or is close to it, people are just going to be like, no, I preferred that one. Nothing like it, but I preferred that one. And that's totally fine. That's the medium we live in. It's a bit of a, you can't slate one thing and then go on to say that another thing's good, even if they're both good, but you just prefer one thing. It's opinions, isn't it? It's just how the world works nowadays. Yeah. Is the Dark Knight both of your favourites?
For DC, I'd say it is.
All right. But overall, we'll say overall at the moment.
Overall, it's not. For me, I'd probably say it's Infinity War.
Okay, fair enough. So that would be. We'll probably elaborate on that as well more in a bit, because we're going to do our favourite of the MCU and a favourite of the current DC slate of films as well. So yeah. But has anyone else got anything to say for Dark Knight?
I was just going to say for my films that I'm slightly torn because, and I think this is just a general like between the two universes, that for me, I'd probably side more with a DC film like Dark Knight for a favourite one, because that is what I inherently think of as a superhero film, is that is very action-packed.
Yeah.
Whereas a lot of the MCU films take a more comedic approach. Not that I'm saying anything wrong with that, because personally, some of my favourite MCU films are the Thor films, which especially Ragnarok has a very comedic side to it.
I can understand Ragnarok. I wouldn't have said the first two, but
I like Thor as a character, just again because of there's quite a lot of comedy.
You just love looking at the character, Chris Hemsworth, don't you?
Yeah, and also that I love him, man crush. I think I'll always just favour a DC film for a favourite superhero one over an MCU one, just because it is a more typical action film, which I think a superhero film should be.
Yeah.
Not that I'm saying there's anything wrong with the MCU films. I still enjoy them and everything, but I think both universes are targeted to very different people.
Yeah,
which I think is where we get the big divide from.
Marvel's very cookie cutter. Like a lot of the movies follow the same formula. Like you can make comparisons to Iron Man and Ant-Man and this and that, and there are a few movies that are a bit different that we'll probably say are our favorites from that. But like, I personally am a bigger DC fan than I am a Marvel fan. I don't really read that many Marvel comics, but I read DC comics, or I did read DC comics more. But that's preference. I just think they're a better comic company. I guess they write more interesting stories, or have had more compelling stories over the years, and that's the same for a lot of the movies. I feel like a lot of DC movies get hated on for like no reason. Like, I don't know why people hated Man of Steel that much, but then went on to love Marvel's Iron Man number 3000 because they're the same thing, like but I'm not saying I don't I dislike the MCU. I think what they've done is great. I think they've really built a universe. But when I see a Marvel movie, I think, okay, am I going to get the same or similar thing that I got last movie, or what? And then when I see a DC movie, I'm going to be like, it could be good or it could be bad, but at least it's going to be different, Suicide Squad was different to Batman v Superman.
And then the Joker was just very different altogether.
Yeah, exactly.
The thing felt very different, and that again, it's another one of those where it took away from what your generic superhero film was.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's why a lot of people, again, that split opinions. I think that's the reason why as well. Is that people were expecting maybe the problem of they're expecting a Heath Ledger Joker and didn't get it, and they didn't get the action in the film because there wasn't much. It was more a physical story than just here's a bad guy, let's beat him up.
I think the new Batman movie is very smart in the fact that they're ignoring the Joker for now. They're going to do a completely different villain, something they needed to do. Because when you see Batman, you're like, oh, they're going to do the Joker again. It's the same in like TV and stuff like that. A lot of I know none of you watch a lot of the superhero TV shows, but The Flash, it's not been great the past few seasons, but it always comes back to, oh, he's fighting another speedster villain again. Oh, he's doing this again. Oh, he's getting another pep talk when he doesn't need it. There are some good superhero TV shows that a lot of people don't watch, or I guess anti-superhero TV shows in the case of like The Boys. It's a comic book show, but it's very anti-superhero and it's great. But, it's different. And whether people like different or not might not appeal to MCU fans if they like the light, funny, it's still a funny thing, but it's a very dark show. So yeah, should we kick off with well, I say kick off the next part with our best MCU movies, and just say Adam with Infinity War first, unless you got anything else to say before.
I mean, I've got nothing else to say really.
Sure.
I think it. Sorry.
No.
Why didn't we just say in the film or?
Yeah, no. I meant. Did you have anything else to say before we moved on? No. Okay, all right. MCU. Sure, Adam. Infinity War.
Obviously, Infinity War. Just it tied all of the different stories and plot lines together really well, and I think the ending. I feel like me being maybe the slightly gloomy sort of person that I am, if I had my own way, I probably would have ended the whole series just there, because it's not very often that you actually see the bad guys win in films.
Then you've also got to remember it's a comic book movie, so they were never going to end it on a villain winning.
They were.
Yeah.
And also they have a huge child
kids,
and younger kid fan base.
That's never going to happen.
They want the happy ending. They're used to the happy ending. That's what the big payoff is, the happy ending.
I mean, I'm not going to lie, I was kind of rooting for Thanos, but I think Josh Brolin played him brilliantly.
Mm-hmm.
I think, and then all of the quotes, everything he said, I think it's probably because they did such a good job building him up over the films. He was never the main point of a film, but he was always referenced.
He was always there in the background and slowly building.
And then
what
he came
DC should have done with Darkseid.
Yeah,
they fucked it up.
Everything that he said had weight to it. Every scene he was in, you just couldn't sort of look away from it, really. You're always focused on what he was doing.
I think that's just generally what Marvel Universe do a lot better than the DC Universe, is that they have this more expanded universe that they can have these long running stories in the background. Whereas obviously we've had so many different Batmans and Jokers and stuff in the recent years that you physically can't do that with the DC films. Like they can't all be connected. There has to be a hard cut somewhere.
I do have something to interject here as well.
Okay.
Marvel had Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and stuff like that, the TV shows. They were good shows. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. was especially good. And then they sort of basically just at near the end of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.'s run, I don't know, like season 6, they just sort of went and like it was loosely connected. Like everything beforehand was connected. Like there was when Winter Soldier happened, there was a whole Hydra thing in Shield, and they all had to disband, and everything happened. But then it went on, and things started to make less sense in terms of story canon. Like Infinity War happened in Agents of Shield, but the timeline didn't measure up. Like it happened in like a day or something, when in the show it was like over a few like weeks or so. It just didn't make sense, and then they sort of just gave up on it. And then I think Kevin Feige or someone high up was like, yeah, none of these shows are really connected. And they did that with Netflix shows as well, like Daredevil and stuff like that. And they just sort of they had an overarching expanded universe, and they just threw it away, and they just gave up on it. And you're like, why? People are invested in this. And when everyone says, oh, DC doesn't have an overarching thing, they do. It's just DC are known for their multiverse. So they have one universe where there's Superman, Batman, blah, blah, blah. And they have another universe where there's another Superman and Batman, but they can meet up. It's like the CW DC TV shows recently, like in the past year, had a crossover. And in that crossover, the Flash from the TV show met Ezra Miller's Flash in from the movie. But like there was like a little crossover because the whole point was like the universe was, you know, going downhill and shit like that. I won't explain it, but like they had a little meeting, and it's just little things like that. While DC, I think we can say DC has a better TV universe. I wouldn't say the TV
definitely.
shows are 100% way better, because Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. was excellent. And while Arrow was excellent and The Flash started off very well, like some shows have gone a bit off the rails and a bit meh, but there's just so many, like look at Titans, Doom Patrol, Swamp Thing, shows you've probably never watched or even heard of sometimes, but they're all like their own thing. They're excellent, they're great shows. And you don't see that with Marvel. Just gave up. Like the Netflix shows, after the first seasons of each show, they weren't as good. Jessica Jones' second season was terrible, in my opinion. Luke Cage, I thought, was better second season, but the first season wasn't great. Well, half of it.
Do you think
great.
that might have played a part though? Because obviously they have such this big fan base from the films that obviously they look to capitalize on that with trying to do TV series as well, that it obviously filled the gaps between films for people to watch, but maybe because they weren't the films, they ended up not getting the numbers they wanted.
Definitely popular. The Netflix shows were highly popular. Daredevil was the top show for ages, I'm pretty sure.
But maybe not as much as the films that they expected, so then it just dropped off a bit, and so in general it just dropped off.
The point is that now they're not doing the Netflix shows, and they've taken those characters away from Netflix. They're not doing anything with them. So why stop doing it? Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. was, while it was based off the comic, it was loose. It was a loose interpretation. It was its own thing. It was completely like had some returning characters, but it was. But
that might just come down to a money point of view. That obviously they would have been getting money from Netflix to put the shows on there. Whereas obviously they have Disney Plus now, where it just costs them to make it, and
that's why they did it. That's why they took them off, because they wanted them on their own streaming service.
But are they not pushing it further because they can't pull in more subscriptions with them? So because they've gone on already, and maybe the hype's died down a bit, they're not going to get the extra subscriptions from people just to watch those TV shows. So maybe they don't think it's worth it from a money point of view.
I think Netflix
the people who would watch
it
probably already have it, so they're not getting anything extra. So Netflix probably did, but I was obviously from the same point of view, obviously they're getting money in from Netflix because Netflix have to buy the rights to it, whereas they're not getting that income anymore if they put it on Disney Plus.
We'll look at it like this: there are no more Marvel TV shows out there. There were like, I don't know, 6 or 7 or 8 Marvel TV shows. All of them have either ended or been cancelled now. The only TV shows that are going to be around are the ones on Disney Plus. So we know Disney's sort of gone and said, no, we're making all our TV shows now. They're all going to be on Disney Plus. And that's fair enough. They have the right to do that. But there were people were like crazy for Daredevil, crazy for all of this. And while the shows didn't always deliver, like Iron Fist wasn't like, it was pretty much critically and fan panned in the first season, and while it got better, it wasn't, amazing. It still had the shows still had their moments, and to say like they didn't have a fan base, that's not true. They did, but it's because Disney were like, trying to monopolize everything. They can't control Netflix, so why don't they just take control of everything? They're doing it now. They're going to do WandaVision, which looks pretty good if you've seen the trailer. They're going to do Falcon and Winter Soldier. Just Disney want to control everything with Marvel now because they got Disney Plus, and it's the same with everything. They want everything,
which is understandable.
Star Wars and stuff like that to be on Disney Plus. And yeah, there's not much else to say on that, really, is there? They just want to control it, and that's fair enough. What's your favorite?
We got a long way from our favorite films, yeah.
Yeah, what's your favorite MCU movie?
I'm now going to completely contradict myself from my favorite, my all-time one of saying up. I might go with Ragnarok, just because it is that so different that although it may not be a conventional superhero film, I do really enjoy the humor side of it.
Yeah,
like Krog is an amazing character. Some of his lines is ridiculous, just how funny it is. And
yeah, it's played by Taika Waititi, I think, isn't it? The director.
Yes,
of the movie.
Yeah. And yeah, I just think the comedy that comes from that is really good. It's a really easy film to watch, I think.
Yeah,
and because it's not as heavily linked to the main storyline, I think that also helps as well, that you don't have to be a huge fan of everything else to understand it and get what's going on.
I agree. It was something 4 needed. Like, traditionally 4 is meant to be a bit of a darker movie, it's not meant to be as humorous, but they had to do something because 4, 1 and 2 were not seen in a very nice light. So they took it in the comedic route, and it worked. I'm not going to sit here and complain. I think the movie was very entertaining. It's my favourite 4 movie, obviously. It's one of my favourite movies of the MCU. It's not my favourite MCU movie, though. That would be Captain America: The Winter Soldier.
Another great film, to be fair.
Just because I like the whole
spy. That is definitely up there.
I like the whole spy espionage sort of aspects of movies. I think it was an interesting way to go, and it impacted the whole series and impacted Agents of It made Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. like 10 times better. It did so much for the movies as well. It just added another dynamic. It's just a really fun movie. And too bad they didn't continue that trend of, well, they did. Like, Civil War had its own breakups, and I guess Age of Ultron did as well. but there was nothing else really that were like you watch Thor Ragnarok. Did it impact the rest of the MCU that much? Not really. It impacted Thor, but it didn't do much. There wasn't like a big world altering event, and it doesn't have to be. But if you're going to create this interconnected universe, you got to try something different. I don't want to go into Ant-Man and just have the same movie as watching Iron Man, but with a few more jokes, you know.
The second one that you based a film around chasing a suitcase.
I hate Ant-Man too. Ant-Man and the Wasp is a terrible movie.
The most entertaining part of that film was the fact that Nathan lost his phone.
Oh yeah, our friend. It was Adam. It was Adam. Yeah, it was Adam. He's here right now.
Adam losing his phone.
We spent half the film looking under the cinema seat to find his phone,
and that was more entertaining than the film itself.
I missed nothing. I felt like I missed nothing.
Yeah, I think the villain was terrible, but the other villain was fine. Ghost, I think she was okay.
Yeah,
but she was hardly.
She was alright.
She was like I don't know how to say it. But the movie was tracing some fucking evil dude around with a suitcase. You know, I don't find that entertaining. I don't know about you. I liked Ant-Man. I like the character, but Ant-Man and the Wasp was not a good movie.
Why Ant-Man wasn't Infinity War?
What was that?
It just showed why Ant-Man
wasn't in Infinity. Yeah.
Yeah, because he was stuck in the quantum verse.
Yeah.
Is it Quantum Verse, Quantum World? One of them.
Yeah.
But yeah, they revealed that as a post-credit scene.
And they tagged that on at the end. They could have done more, right? They could have done more.
They could have done a lot more to tie it into the main Marvel universe, but it just felt like a standalone film.
My biggest problem with Endgame was that they had all of these characters, Spider-Man, everyone loved. And I thought for half the movie they'd be gone, and then the other half they'd be back. No, they were gone for the entire movie. They didn't come back until the end. And you're like, I get it. They want the original Avengers to have their swan song, their final moment, before they transition. But I also want them to introduce these new characters and make them interesting. I want to be able to watch Spider-Man and think, I'm excited for a new Spider-Man, for Spider-Man to be a part of the Avengers going forward, not, oh, Iron Man's dead. Oh, that's the Avengers over there. Because there's we're not optimistic about the future of the Avengers now, are we? I personally, for me, I'm like, I haven't seen the new Spider-Man actually. I should probably.
Far From Home. I quite enjoyed that.
I have not seen it. I was waiting for it to be on Disney Plus, but I don't think it's on there yet.
It's on Sky.
Yeah.
If you have Sky, Torch on there.
Yeah.
But I do think it was a bit weird how obviously Spider-Man's supposed to be this new part of the Avengers sort of thing, and then they kind of took that away a bit during the film. Mm-hmm. Obviously, not seeing it, I won't say too much in case I don't explore anything. But yeah, there isn't really anything to do with that in there. It was a good film though. To be fair, I enjoyed it. Yeah. I won't say too much, obviously, because I don't want to.
Well, we'll move on anyway because this is getting to a long podcast. So, we've already said our favorite DC films, and we won't go into too much detail. But let's just give our favorite of the current DC films. If you want to count Joker in there, you can count Joker.
That makes my life easy.
You want to say Joker? A brilliant film. What can you say about
brilliant
it?
Film?
I would also say Joker, but I'm going to be controversial and say, it's either Man of Steel or Batman v Superman. Man of Steel is the best Superman movie we've ever had. I stand by that. And Batman v Superman, the Ultimate Edition, is a great movie, and I think in many ways it's superior to Civil War. I feel like it was Civil War, but better action. And it had more of a, I don't want to say a focus, but just having the two characters rather than calling it Captain America Civil War and then pitting the Avengers against each other. It should have been Civil War should have been an Avengers movie.
Avengers film. Yeah.
Man,
Yeah. So I'm gonna switch it up and I'm gonna say Man of Steel instead. because I think it's severely underrated, and I don't think it deserves the hate that it gets. And I think it gets a lot of that hate because everyone's like, oh, they caused so much collateral damage. Why didn't Superman take Zod, a person that he couldn't control, to a rural area to fight? They did fight in a rural area, and then they moved to Metropolis because Zod went to Metropolis and just started destroying the city. I don't know what else they want. If you want a realistic superhero movie, you're going to see a realistic case of collateral damage, and that collateral damage led into Batman v Superman. That's a good example of one movie affecting another movie, in my eyes, which is what I think some of the smaller MCU movies should have done. Like a Thor movie should have maybe had a little hint towards a movie going, and they started to do that a bit. Like at the end of Thor Ragnarok, they had the ship come down, and then Avengers.
And it leads straight into Infinity War, doesn't it?
But I would have liked to have seen more. I would have liked to have seen Thanos and his order completely obliterate that ship, like take everyone out. But we saw the aftermath. I feel like that's a waste, you know? I feel like they should have done more with that. Like, have the end of Ragnarok be Thanos showing up and tearing up the ship, and then it ending, and everyone being like, oh, I really want to see what happens in Infinity War. I think that would have been a great
because you're just taking some of the action out of what should be an action film.
Yeah. But
say as well on topic of like Superman.
What was that? Sorry.
Man of Steel. Henry Cavill is a brilliant actor.
Oh, Henry Cavill's amazing.
Henry Cavill is a brilliant actor.
I love that man.
Like all the work he did in The Witcher, and then as Superman as well. Like
he was great in Mission Impossible as well.
Not that you two might not have seen it. He actually does quite a good Sherlock Holmes in Enola Holmes as well. I watched that last night.
My girlfriend told me she watched it last night as well. She said he was really good in it.
So he is. Yeah. Obviously, I quite like not that this is about Sherlock Holmes or anything, but I do quite like the Sherlock Holmes stories, and I think he did quite well.
Yeah.
Nothing will beat Cumberbatch, but.
Well, I hope that Henry Cavill becomes the next James Bond, because that's a big rumor at the moment.
He said that he'd want to do it, which I don't know if you. I can't see. I'd never get that right when people put the question out of, "Do you want to be James Bond?" Who is going to say no?
Of course, I'm sorry. But Henry Cavill has been rumored for a couple years now.
I think so is Idris Elba. He's been rumored for like the past 10 years.
Well, not quite, but yeah, I get your point.
If it's not going to be Madden, then
Richard
I think, then I'd say Henry Cavill would be probably the best.
We apologise for his internet. He does lag out a bit, but he was saying Richard Madden over Cavill, and then Cavill over anyone else, which I agree with. I'd probably go.
He did in Bodyguard.
Oh yeah, Bodyguard. He was good in that. Yeah.
Sort of. It's that sort of similar-ish to Bond, anyway.
Yeah, similar to Bond. We're done with James Bond talk. I think we're done. Who's your favourite superhero? Or vigilante, or comic book hero? Anything? Anyone? John?
No, that's one for like thinking about.
Well, I mentioned earlier Thor. I love Thor. Well, as a hit, like a super hit, actually, like a hero kind. I love Thor. I think it's a great character. Funny, fat Thor. Fat Thor goes above normal Thor, of course, because everyone loves Fat Thor. Yeah. Actual like single character Krog, legend, absolute legend.
Fair enough.
I also think, although obviously we won't get to see any more of it, Black Panther is a great character.
Yeah, big shame, but
it'd be interesting to see where they go with that.
They're either going to get his sister to be Black Panther,
which I think would be the best way to go with it.
She was the character was Black Panther in the comics, so
yeah,
it makes
I think that's the best way to go. I don't want to see them recast.
Yeah,
personally,
I don't know how they're going to explain it. Like he just died, but
they might be able to. They may have like unused footage that they might be able to put together for something. So and
Possibly.
they technically already have footage of him dying, don't they? So from the first film, so they could just rework some of that. Obviously, there's so much they can do with like the CGI and stuff now that I'm sure they'll be able to use some old footage or a joint of old footage and CGI
it's a massive
do
shame,
something.
but we're gonna have to move on from it, aren't we? They're gonna have to find a way to. They're either gonna have to cancel Black Panther 2 or recast, which they won't do, I don't think, or just get Shiri. I think her name's Shiri. Or Shuri? I don't remember.
Yeah, I can't see them cancelling it just because of the huge following it gained.
Yeah.
And obviously it gave a lot of black people like superheroes to look up to that they just haven't had previously.
Yeah,
I can't see them
yeah.
I can't see them getting rid of that, and it would be wrong for them to get rid of that, I think. So
agree.
I don't think they should cancel it. I don't think they should recast. I think the right thing would be to make the sister, as is in the comics, make the sister Black Panther.
So, Adam, favorite superhero?
Anyone, I'd
vigilante, comic book character.
Have to be.
It's alright to say Batman. You're allowed to say Batman.
Nah, I was torn. So for superheroes, I'd probably say Iron Man because of the progression he showed as a character over the films. Like going from that egotistical billionaire only caring about himself to ultimately sacrificing himself for everybody. I think it was a nice story arc. But I prefer the villains in films. So
but can we all agree that the Iron Man 3 was a shit film?
Oh yeah.
I don't think
it just followed the Marvel pattern.
No, really. I genuinely don't think it's that bad. I don't think the villain was all that great, but I think it was a good story for Tony Stark. It was a good Tony Stark movie, but it wasn't a good Iron Man movie. I think that's a fair assessment. Yeah.
Yeah.
Personally, my favorite, as someone who reads comics, my favorite character is Nightwing. He's not been in movies yet. He's meant to get his own movie. Whether that's still happening or not, I have no idea. He is in like every sort of animated show ever. He's in Titans.
He's in all the games as well. Well,
he's in
a lot of the Arkham games anyway.
Yeah. So that is my favorite.
You can play as Nightwing in Arkham Origins.
In Night he's playable as well. Yeah, he's in the story.
And then,
he's going to be in the new Gotham Knights game along with Batgirl, Robin, and Red Hood. So yeah.
Which I'll talk about the games. If anyone's interested in buying them, they are on sale on Steam at the moment.
The
all the Batman games.
Oh,
yeah. Knight's going to be free on PS5 as well.
I think I can get it on PS now, on PS4 at the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you're looking for a superhero game to play, don't spend £55 on the Marvel game.
Do not buy Avengers. Do not buy the Avengers game. Please.
DC. Get Batman games.
Unless it's a Lego game. Brilliant. I'll accept a Lego game. You can buy
no, but do not buy the new Marvel's Avengers game. Give it a year or two. See how they do with this live service model. If they actually expand the game, and then think about it. But in its current state, I don't think it's worth the £50 retail price. £55 retail. That's even worse. So, yeah,
that extra £5 makes a big difference.
They've just thrown £55 onto it just for the fun of it, because that's what games seem to be costing at the moment.
Well, in the future, we might talk about maybe our favorite games or favorite
villain to wrap it up.
I was going to ask you
what
game. While we're talking about games, which is your favorite of the games?
I'm the only one that's played all of them, aren't I?
So I'm going to stay out of this conversation.
Night was really good, but it got let down by the lack of boss fights and the overuse of the Batmobile. City was probably the most well-rounded game. Origins had the best, I want to say, story and boss fights. It was massively underrated. And
Origins was brilliant. The boss fights were.
And Asylum is just really good. Terrible final boss, but really good. They're
I'd
all really
say-
worth playing. They're all 10 out of 10 games near. If we're only doing the Arkham games, like if we were doing other games, Injustice, I love the Injustice games. They're both brilliant, but we'll just stick to the Arkham games because there's probably other games that I'm thinking of and just can't get it out of my head. So my favorite Arkham game, I'll go City. City was the one that really changed the game. So City.
I can see why you'd say City, but for me personally, it's Origins.
I genuinely, they're all really close. I was considering saying Asylum because it's the only one I've played 3 times.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I'd say Asylum, City, and Origins are all at a similar level, but Knight's slightly lower.
Yeah.
Purely because of the lack of boss fights and Batmobile. I mean, the fact that they had Deadpool and
Deathstroke, you mean?
The actual Deathstroke.
Don't trigger people.
The actual Arkham Knight boss fight as well. It was just ridiculously bad. If you compare the boss fight
the
against
Arkham Knight boss
Deathstroke
fight was
in
good.
Arkham Origins compared to Arkham Knight, the Deathstroke fights, the
Origins fight is
in
awesome.
Knight was so it was just crap compared to Origins.
I will say that the final Arkham Knight fight, the final fight you fight with Arkham against Arkham Knight, that's a good one. The one where he's on the perch and you have to sneak around. That one's really good. The rest of them, no.
With the sniper.
Yeah.
I think it is, but there was an opportunity for some really good hand-to-hand sort of stuff, similar to how Deathstroke
100%.
was in Origins. I feel like they dropped the ball a bit on that.
Well, you fight Deathstroke in this, and you have to kill a tank to beat him.
Yeah, exactly.
So...
But like Deathstroke in a tank, like logically, no, I wouldn't have thought Deathstroke could be using a tank.
Well, the last thing we'll say here for this one is the best boss fight is Mr. Freeze in Arkham City. That's why I put it above.
That is a very good one.
So yeah.
Favorite.
We'll do favorite villains and then we'll end it. So favorite villain, it can be movie or whatever.
I'm gonna have to say Thanos.
You want to say Thanos, Shaun?
Yeah, obvious.
I think it's kind of a given, isn't it? Just he's the big one that gets the most development. Because obviously most of the villains they don't get much because they're just kind of small ones there in a single film, and there's not much character development on them.
It's sort of like we talked about earlier with Thanos and just how he was built up. He was never named, but he was always in the background. Getting talked about, I think, was brilliant. And then just the character himself had some brilliant quotes and stuff that I can sort of just pick from the top of my head straight away when I think about Thanos in the films as well.
Fair enough.
Not for an actual character point of view, I would say someone who I just remembered and didn't think much about, Mads Mikkelsen in Doctor Strange. That's it. I think he's brilliant in everything he does. So again, quite a good.
If anyone's seen Hannibal, brilliant, brilliant
great
TV show.
Yeah, great TV show. It's a bit confusing, I think, in the last season, but it's still a great show.
Well, shame they didn't get to bring it back. Well, they might bring it back, but who knows? All right, currently my favorite villain / technically he's a superhero, but he's definitely a villain. Is, if anyone's seen The Boys, Homelander. The actor who plays Homelander is one of the best actors of this generation, and I recommend, if you haven't seen The Boys, watch it just for him. The rest of it's great. The rest of The Boys is great, but he is one of the best characters in any superhero medium ever, in my opinion. He's brilliant. He goes from
Anthony Starr.
Yeah, he's amazing. Yeah. Like, even if you just watch certain scenes, like there's a scene, season 1, episode 4. There's a scene on the plane. He's amazing in that. And there's just little things about his character that his facial expressions are amazing. So at the moment, I'd go with him as a current villain that's currently on our screens in some form. Overall, I mean, it's easy to go Heath Ledger, isn't it? But I don't really want to be that guy. If I had to pick from MCU and DCU, just not including Ledger, I'd I don't know if it counts. I was gonna say Winter Soldier, but he's not a hero. He's not a villain anymore. He never really was.
He's
more
a
of an anti-villain.
turned.
He was more of an anti-hero. But I just love the Winter Soldier so much that I say he technically wasn't the villain. Hydra was the villain. Honestly, all of Hydra. I'm gonna put all of Hydra on that list. But if I'm being honest, I think General Zod was brilliant. I'll stick with my Man of Steel. General Zod. I'll put General Zod up there. I'll give some shout outs to General Zod. Whether he's the best, I don't know, but I'll give him. He was brilliant. We'll leave it at that. Homelander and General Zod for me at the moment. I think we're done. We're good, right? No one else has anything to say.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think so.
We're looking forward to a lot of the superhero shows like WandaVision and Falcon and Winter Soldier and whatever DC does on this side. But yeah.